Today we're going to talk about buttons. So as you know, buttons are a way for the user to interact with our view. So for example, if you have a registration form, you can have a button called register at the very bottom or at the top right navigation bar. And when the user click it, you perform the registration actions. Also, buttons can be used or applied to other objects. For example, you can use a button for an image, and when the user clicks on the image, you can open a web view or you can zoom in the image. So essentially, buttons are a way for the user to interact with our app. All right, let's start learning about buttons. So as you can see, this is our demo project, and this is our content view, and this is the body view, which contains one SwiftUI view components. And within here right now, we have a text display as hello world. And as you can see on the right, I have the preview open here. If you do not have the preview, remember to toggle it on using this menu or this shortcut. All right, so let's continue. So basically, to initialize a button, as you can see in the autocomplete, we have various initializers, and we are going to use this one first. So title action. And let's hit enter. So this title is basically the text displayed on the screen, and this action is what happens when the user taps on that button. So let's, for example, provide this is a button, and then let's click on the action. Let's hit enter or the return on your keyboard, and this block contains the code that will run when the button is clicked. So for example, I can print OK. So on the right side, we can see there's a button, and by default, it has a color of blue. All right, so this is the initialization, the very basic initialization method is that you provide a title and you provide a action to be run here. Now, as we learned before, let's practice to make like a number incrementer. So basically, there will be a number displayed here, and when I click on the button, the number will increment by 1. All right, so to store the number, we need a variable. So let's recall the content we learned previously. If I want a variable's value to be able to be changed during runtime, aka the variable is dynamic, what keyword do I put before the variable? All right, it's at state. It's called a state variable. A state variable's value can be changed during runtime in SwiftUI. It can be changed by a button, it can be changed by a function, it can be changed while the view is showing on the screen. And the views that refers to the variable, the views that references the variable will update automatically if you state. So let's have a state variable, and let's put like a number counter. The type is an integer, and let's start from 0. Now, I can modify this value during runtime. So maybe this button can be +1, and this within here, we just number counter or self dot number counter is the same here, and then plus equals 1. All right, and now if I click on this, the value is going to increase by 1, but we can't see this value. So let's put a text. All right, I remember in previous lessons we learned we can put other objects within the string. So basically by providing this slash and then this parenthesis, and then we can put the number counter. Now recall, within the body view, we can only put one view element. So this is what is going to happen if you put 2 of them. So within similarly, you can actually switch between them, but when the view is actually showing in the iOS device, it's not a good idea. Just remember, within the body, there can only be one view components. So what you can do here is wrap them around in another structure that can contain multiple components. And recall, if you want to wrap components within one, what are these structures? What structures can we put multiple view components in? All right, it's basically the first one is stacks. So stacks are a way, as a word describes, stacks multiple components. So we have a V stack, which aligns component vertically. We can have an H stack, right, which Aligns component horizontally. We have a Z stack. Of course, a lazy V stack, lazy Z stack, but we'll talk about this later. Also, we have form, like a registration form, login form, info form. We can also have a list, and of course, there's a for each. Right? There's also a group, but typically, if you're designing a view, use stack. If you're designing a form, like a login form, registration form, information form, use a form. So here, let's use the VStack since we want to align them vertically on the screen. Now let's put a block, and then let's put the code in there. Now you can see that we have the text and the button. So if I click the button now, you can see the number increased. All right, so this is now you got how to initialize a basic button. Now let's try to change the color of this button. All right, so to change the color, you use a wheel modifier. So remember, when you use a wheel modifier, you put your mouse cursor after this element, you hit enter, and then you hit a dot, and the wheel modifier that you are going to use is called a tint. Right, set the tint within this view, and let's set it to green. So that's how you change the color of the button, is by using the tint modifier. So you can just remember this. And there's a very cool feature about a button in the recent versions is that you can add another. So to add another view modifier, you just hit enter after the previous view modifier. So it's called a button style. So this basically provides some presets. So if you use a border prominent, you see this button now has a beautiful rounded rectangle, with a corner radius. That's very cool. So we can use border prominent, and the color of the background of this rectangle is based on the tint. So if I comment off this tint, it will use the default blue. All right. There's also the bordered, which will show a lighter color on the for the rounded rectangle with the button. We can also have borderless. This is just the same as if you do not apply this border style. Okay, so you can choose whatever you like. For example, the bordered, or you can choose the border prominent. Right. All right, here we go. Just choose whatever style you need to use. Now, let me introduce you another way so that you can initialize a button with an image or some other custom views, right? So that is to use this button action label. So, all right, so here, if you hit return on your keyboard, you got two code blocks. The first one is the code that's gonna execute when the button is clicked. The second block contains the one SwiftUI view component. So this can be a text, this can be an image, this can be label, or this can be anything else like your custom design SwiftUI view. So I would still like to increase the contour here. So in the view, what we can do is we can put an image. So this is basically a SF symbol. So by seeing image, I mean bundle image within a bundle, or SF symbol image, right? So if you want to use a bundle image, you do it by using this initialization method, this name bundle. And if you use a system image, you use the system image initializer. Just remember, you can only put one component within here. So let's put an image, for example, plus, like circle. And now you can see the image here. And as we learned before, if you have a system image, you can change the size by using the font view modifier. See large title, so this image will become larger. Here we go. We can also change many other stuff for you can use any view modifiers for image. Now, you can also put a text, example plus. Here we go. It's the same as if we just initialize the button with a text. We can also put a label. A label is a component, remember we learned before, contains both an image. This function, this initializer title key image is for local image, and the system image means an SF symbol. So we can say +1, and then we can use this plus circle. And as it ran, here we go. We have the image and the text. Now you can apply give modifiers to this button as we talked before. So here we go. We got a beautiful button with an image and a text. Of course, here you can use an image, you can use a label, you can use text, and in the next few chapters, we're also going to talk about design your own SwiftUI components. So that's a place where you can apply multiple, of your you can apply your custom view components within here. Okay, so that's another initialization for the button. So here, I want to talk about something else. So when we did the title action one, so remember, like we can do a -1 and then self.number minus equals 1, right? You can actually provide one more parameter. It's called the role. That will indicate the role of this button, so the system can provide some default configuration. So for example, if that button is destructive, like the delete button, so if you do it here, it will have a default tint of red. All right, so this is an additional parameter you can use. Okay, so just to wrap up today, in this lecture, we talked about button. A button is a way for the user to interact with the SwiftUI view. A button can change, for example, change some variables, or a button here maybe you can call it submit, and then within here, I can make a network call. So for example, I can, I can submit the number that is stored in the number counter, or I can save this value using user defaults, or later we will learn about app storage, etc. So a button can modify a value, submit a value, etc. And you can design the button in different ways. For example, you can apply a button style with a border prominent. And you can also, as we talked before, we can use the button label method so that we can include a image or a label or a text for a button. And do know that here within the label, if we add a padding here, it will apply to the inside of the button. So the padding is not applied outside of the button. That padding is applied inside the button. So this is a way where we can add more spacing within the button. Okay, and then we talk about you can use tint to modify the color of the button. All right, so that's all about button. I'll see you next time.